students. You are welcome to the facilitation class section on AEA 308, Principle of Farm Management. Topic 5, titled Farm Inputs and Form of Business Ownership. Lesson 4 was interesting, but lesson 5 will be very interesting. So stay put and listen. I am Helen, Inyan, your course facilitator. Our topic of our discussion today is farm inputs management and forms of business ownership. In this lesson, we'll discuss entrepreneur and differentiate entrepreneur from labor as a factor of production. We'll also discuss the forms of farm business ownership, such as sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporate business or enterprise. Will be of this lesson is at the end of this lesson, you will be able to define entrepreneur, explain why entrepreneur is separated from labor, describe the organizational structure of typical farm business, explain the meaning of sole proprietorship, characterize the characteristics of the advantages and disadvantages of sole proprietorship. Explain the meaning of partnership, the type of partnership, forms of business ownership, list the characteristics of partnership, the advantages of partnership and disadvantage of partnership of business organizations. Explain meaning of limited liability and characteristics of limited liability. We'll also explain the formation of limited liability and list the advantages as well as the disadvantages of limited liability. Now we are going to look at the entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur or enterprise or organization describes the function of taking decisions about what to produce, who combines the other factors of production to produce what has been decided on. Entrepreneur combines and organizes land, labor, and capital in such a way as to obtain maximum production of goods and services at minimum cost. The entrepreneur is normally the person who risks its capital in establishing a business whose profitability cannot be determined at that time. The reward for entrepreneur is profit or loss. So we are going to look at why entrepreneur is separated from labor. Entrepreneur, which is the fourth factor of production, involves human efforts, similarly to labor, and yet it is separated from labor as a factor of production. The reason for separating entrepreneur from labor is based on crucial functions which entrepreneur perform, which labor does not perform. So let's look at the functions. The functions here are provision of capital. This is one of the most important functions of or performed by an entrepreneur, which labor does not perform. He provides the capital for the formation of the business. He also provides capital for carrying out production activities of the business. It is from this capital provided by entrepreneur that labor can function well. That means labor will be paid from the capital provided by entrepreneur. he bears the risks. An entrepreneur bears risks. Entrepreneur bears risks at all, that is, bear all the risks that occur in business. As a provider of the capital of the business, if the business fails, he bears the losses alone. That is why his reward is either profit or loss. It is important to mention here that laborers will collect their wages, whether the business succeeds or not. He does not share the risks of the business, but entrepreneur does that. Entrepreneur takes decisions. That is, decision taking is another important function of an entrepreneur. There are many decisions confronting business organizations. In farm business, entrepreneurs are confronted with such decisions as what to produce, how much to produce, how to produce, when to produce, and whom to produce for. So the success or failure of the business depends solely on the good and or bad decision taken by an entrepreneur. Also, an entrepreneur coordinates other factors of production. Entrepreneurs combine and coordinate other factors of production in order to achieve meaningful production. He determines the quality and the quantity of other factors of production that will be needed or that will be enough for productive purposes. An entrepreneur also maintain efficiency management system. He also plays the rules of maintaining efficient management in production lines. He directs where workers should work and delegates authority to his assistant for efficient and effective management of their limited resources. Entrepreneurs also perform other miscellaneous functions. This function includes determination of price of goods produced, ensuring good working conditions for workers, determine the scale of production, also whom to employ and whom to retrench, and also who are those people to be retired, and so on. Looking at this, the function of entrepreneur, let us also look at the organizational charge. That's the work of entrepreneur. Agricultural business are made up of people working together towards the common purpose. As soon as agro-business involves more than one person, a variety of organizational, personnel, leadership, and motivational issues inevitably arises. The larger the organization, the more complex and critical the issue becomes. So let us look at the typical organizational structure here. We have here the general manager, who is the head of the organization, assisted by assistant general manager. We also have here the functional controller, livestock manager, crop manager, director of administration. So the typical organizational structure above provides cordial relationship between farm management and farm workers. The highest authority in the farm organization is the general manager, who may be the owner of that business or employed to perform that function or duty. The next is the assistant general manager. After the assistant general manager, the running of the business is divided into various units, which we have here the finance department, which is headed by the controller, that is by the financial controller, and the director of administration is headed by administrative manager. Then that is also depends on the complexity of the management or the business or the organization. The core units can be divided into crop and livestock, each headed by managers. That is the livestock manager as well as the crop manager. All the workers under each unit are answerable to their sectional heads, who will in turn take instruction from the above. No organizational structure is better than the people of whom it is composed. It is not better than those people that they are made up of. Their understanding of the structure and their willingness to work within it is essential to its effectiveness. Even when people are trying to make it work, problems sometimes arise. People have emotions and misunderstanding, especially during seasonal parts of farm production, and emotional tired, because sometimes they are tired and then you still keeping them do this, do that. That means they must be the managers, the head, those in the heads will be able to relate well with their subordinates, motivate them when the need arises for effective functioning of the organization. At this point and at all stages of the farm production, only an honest and effective communication can solve any problem that may arise between the farm workers. Having seen this, let us talk of business organizations. We are going to look at the first on the list here is the sole or single proprietor. The simplest form of this is a simplest form of business in farm organization. It is a one-man business or a sole proprietorship. It exists where people is owned and controlled by, or where business is owned and controlled by just one person. This one person bears all the risks alone, and this form of business has unlimited liability. He enjoys all the profits alone as well. This type of business has no legal entity. That is, it is not a legal, or sorry, it has no legal existence. It is not a legal entity. So looking at this, we are also going to consider the characteristics of sole proprietorship. These are the characteristics. We have the forms of ownership. It is owned and run by one person, though he may have employees. He may employ others. Then types of liability. He has unlimited liability such that the failure of the business could lead to the sales of his personal assets. Sources of capital. He provides the capital required for starting and running the business, either from personal savings or loan from other sources. Also, motivation of his formation or motive, the reasons for its formation. The motive of the forming this business is profit oriented. If the business succeeds, it makes profits. But if the business fails, it incurs loss. Let us also consider the legal status. That is another characteristic. The legal status. The business is not separated legally, or the business is not a separate legal personality. The law does not distinguish between the business and the owner, since it is a sole proprietorship. Once it is being taken to court, the business, the owner too goes to court. So methods of withdrawals of capitals. Since the business is owned and controlled by one person, he does not need any consultation to withdraw his money. He withdraws at will and deposits at will. Nature of business of the business. It is a one-man business, and it is the oldest, the simplest, and the most common type of business organization. So many big business concerns which exist today started as a sole proprietorship. Let us also consider that one of the advantages is the establishment. It comes into existence with great ease. This is because it requires small capital to start, and it does not need any formalization of formalities to operate. Capital requirements. It requires small capitals to start or to operate. Because of this advantage, it is the commonest and the most popular form of business ownership in Nigeria. Decision making. The decision is very quick, because for the fact that it is only one owned by one person. It is that one person that would now take his own decision. He doesn't need anybody to consult before taking his own decision. Business management. This form of business is easy to manage because it is a small size and small number of workers also involved. It has the simplest organizational structure, which makes it easy to manage. Business environment. The sole proprietorship is suitable where there is need for special products and small market for goods and services. Where special products are required, the one-man business is very suitable, since production is usually in small scale. Share of profits. Since the business is owned by one person, owner, and he contributes all his capital, all the capital needed for establishment and running of his business, then all the profits also belongs to him. He will not share it with any other person. Existence of privacy in the business. The sole proprietorship keeps his business affairs secret. No law compels him or the owner of the business to submit his audited balance sheet to the registrar. because since he owns, nobody asked him to do that because it belongs to him. Then relationship between the owner and the employees. As a result of the small nature of the sole proprietorship, the employees are personally known to the proprietors. He knows them very well. This makes supervision easy and ensures effectiveness of the business operation. Multiple operations. For the fact that the business belongs to him, he has every right to engage into other occupations at a time. He can combine two or more types of occupation as a result of the flexibility of his business. Withdrawal of assets. In ease, in case he's no longer interested in the business, he can easily withdraw his assets without consulting anybody. As it is easy to form the business, so also he can go out with ease. It is equally easy to go out of the business or to close the business. That will not have disadvantages. So the disadvantages of a limited liability is that it has limited capital. There is limited capital in finance to finance the business. This is as a result of the fact that the capital used in running the business comes from one man. As a result, lack of enough capital limits the repair or rapid expansion of the business. Limited ability. As a result of the fact that the business revolves around one man, its progress depends on the ability of the proprietor alone. Unlimited liability. He bears the entire risk alone of the business alone. If the business fails, he bears the entire loss. And his personal belongings may have to be sold to pay off the creditors in case he was able to obtain loan from the bank or whoever the source of his income comes from that was not his own, he has to pay. Then the business is not a legal entity too. The owner is not distinct from the business. So this means that if the business is taken to court, it is the owner that is also being taken to court. His business cannot sue or be sued in his own right. No. Because it owns by that person. It cannot sue his business. And also the business cannot be sued. Then lack of continuity. The business has uncertainty of continuity. The exit of the owner may end the business. If the sole proprietor dies today, the business may die with him, either because he has no reliable somebody to continue the business, or his children or relations lack interest in such business. Low competitive ability. This is because of limited liability and limited ability of the owner. The owner of the business does everything alone. Therefore, his ability to compete effectively with other similar businesses is highly limited to whatever the owner can afford. Inadequate leisure time. The owner, because of the own business is owned by one person. He works round the clock. He has no period of rest or break. The proprietor has no leave and no retirement age. He continues to work day and night for the success of the business. Then having seen also take another form of business ownership, that is partnership. Partnership is a relationship which exists between two or more persons who by an agreement decide to run the business together and share the risks and profits of the business. Generally, the number of partners may vary from minimum of 2 to maximum of 20. People wishing to form themselves into partnership should draw up deeds of agreement or article of partnership which set out in a written form the terms and condition of the partnership. All those things must be spelled out in their deeds. What is this deed? The deed is not a legal necessity, but it has the advantages of containing the written agreement because they have to write agreements and spell out certain things. Should disputes arise over the terms of partnership arises in future, at least they will now bring out the deeds which contains the agreement. Read this, what it contains. The partnership deeds contains the following: the name of the partners, name and nature of the business form, amounts of capital contributed, and the rate of interest to be paid on the capital investment on the business. Distribution of partnership, as it contains of the duration of the partnership, amounts that can be withdrawn by the partners from the partnership for their private use since they do not receive salaries. The procedures of liquidation, or what happens after the death of the partners. Consider the types of partnership. There are two major types of partnership: the ordinary or active partnership. In this type of partnership, all members contribute equal capital and take active part in the organization and management of the business. All partners have equal powers, unlimited liabilities, and profits are also shared equally. But the limited or sleeping partners, a limiting partner, on the other hand, is someone who contributes capital but takes no active part in the organization and the management of this business. As the name implies, the limited partner has a limited liability. This partner does not receive any salary as he does not take part in the organization and management of the business. He receives a fixed rate of interest on his capital invested on the business. Let us also consider the characteristics of partnership. These are the main characteristics of partnership include the following: legal status. First one here, number one, legal status. The partner has unlimited liabilities. Sorry, legal status. The business is not a separate legal entity and cannot therefore sue or be sued to court, just like the, the sole proprietorship. Types of liability. It have unlimited liability, just like the sole proprietorship. The sources of capital. The partners contribute capital skill according to agreement reached. In return, each of them receives a proportion of profits as agreed. Motive of formation. The motive of formation of partner is also to make profit. Legal status. The business is not a separate legal entity and cannot therefore sue or be sued in its own name. It's just like sole proprietorship. Nature of the business. The business has no board of directors. The control and management of the business is in the hands of the active partners. Methods of withdrawal of capital. Withdrawals of capital must be approved by other partners as laid down in their partnership deeds. Modes of operation. The partner usually take the major decision together. They also bear the risk of enterprise together. Advantages. This form of business ownership offers better resources for starting and running the business than the sole proprietorship. This is because partnership requires 2 or to 20 people pulling their resources together. In addition, it will be easier for this group of people to borrow money in the bank to finance their business than individuals. This is because the group will be able to offer better collateral security than individuals. Decision making. There is the likelihood that better decisions will be taken since decisions are jointly taken. Each partner contributes to his own ideas. That is, there is a saying that says, two the better ideas are taken since two good heads are better than one. Two good heads are better than one. Sharing of the risks and liability. These risks are shared all among the partners. Each partner is jointly liable with other members of business for all debts of the partners. This reduces the liability of each partner in the event of business failure. Prospects of the business continuity. Prospects of the business continuity is another advantage. So unlike sole proprietorship, the death of one partner may not lead to the total dissolution of the business, since other partner can continue the business. Also, partner may take rest due to illness without adversely affecting the business. Existence of that is the E. Existence of privacy in business, just like the sole proprietorship. The partnership can keep its business affairs private since it is not required by law to make a public account available for inspection. Relationship between the partners and the customers. There is still personal contact with both the customers and the employees of the business. This is because the small size of the business when compared with corporate businesses. Multiple occupation. Like a single proprietorship, partners is allowed to set up more than one small business. In addition, each of the partners will still run another small business on their own. Specialization and division of labor. As a result of different skills and talents possessed by partners, application of division of labor is possible. There could be specialization among the partners in organization and management of the business. Some partners may specialize in production, some may specialize in marketing, and others may specialize in administration of the business. Administrative. Then, in comparison, we can also compare it. In comparison with a single proprietorship, the large size of our partnership makes it possible by its enough capital, make it also possible to offer employment to people, to more people than the sole proprietorship. Disadvantage: limited liability. Unlike the limited liability companies, the partnership has no legal right to obtain more capital through shares from members of the public. They cannot. They will not have the right to obtain more capital through shares from members of the public. Unlimited liability. If the business goes into liquidation, the partner would lose all the capital they contributed. And if not enough, they will sell their personal property. They will sell their personal property. They will sell their personal properties. I said unlimited liability. If the capital they also contributed is not enough, they will sell their personal properties in order to offset the remaining debts. Partnership is not a legal entity too. That is the disadvantage. The business is not a separate legal entity. The partnership cannot sue or be sued in its own right. The partners can be sued separately or jointly as a result of any breach of contracts on the part of the business. Disarrangement or disagreement between partners. Disputes and arguments may arise among the partners, especially if it felt that some members are not contributing enough to the success of the business. Quarrels may lead to liquidation, may lead to separation or conflict, which could eventually cause total dissolution of this business. Slow decision making. Decision making takes a longer time to be reached than the sole proprietor, who is just one person. Exit of partners may end the business. Also, exit of partners may end the business if the partners is not no longer interested and who happen to contribute much may decide to withdraw. This will also affect the continuity of the business. Decrease in personal interest. The interest the partner will show in the business will be minimal because the business is not one man's affairs or one person's affairs. Then lack of mutual trust among themselves. It is difficult to obtain or subsequently difficult to maintain mutual confidence since so is confidence so essential for their types of business. Because there are different people, especially when somebody at least doubts one's trust in one way or the other, they may not be able to, they may, they may lack confidence with another person for them. Let us also look at the corporate or limited liability companies. Limited liability company is an expansion of partnership principle. It aims at securing the better method of mobilizing financial resources. The company came into existence when a number of persons joined together to invest their money in a common enterprise. The liability of each investor for the debts of the business is limited to the amount of his capital invested in the business or in the company. The profits of the company are distributed in proportion to the shares subscribed and paid for. The limited liability company is owned and controlled by shareholders. Each shareholder receives a share of profits called dividends. Limited liability companies are of two types: the private limited liability company and the public limited liability company or the joint stock company. The two types are essentially the same, but the major difference between these two is that in a private liability company, the number of owners who are shareholders ranges from 2 to 50, while in public limited liability company, the minimum number of shareholders is 7, and there is no maximum number, 7 and 7 for all. No limited or maximum number. Private limited liability company is called private or closed because purchase of shares is restricted to only the founders, whereas in public limited liability company, it is open to everybody in the society who is interested in the ownership of the company, like people buying shares from stock exchange, buying shares in other companies. As I am talking, I'm also a shareholder of about 3 different companies. So characteristics of limited liability companies. We have the number of shareholders. That's one of the characteristics, is the number of shareholders. For private limited liability company, the number of shareholders ranges between 2 to 50. For public limited liability company, the number of shareholders starts from 7 and no maximum, and above. Separate entity or legal entity. The business is a separate legal entity. It is recognized as personalities in law. That is the business name. Recognized as personalities in law. The business can sue and be sued on its own name without involving the owner. It is registered as corporate body. Limited liability. The shareholders have limited liability. In the case of a business failure, the amount which the shareholders can lose is limited to his own share or capital he has invested in that business. His personal assets are also protected, not included, because he didn't open it. There is also continuity in the business. The withdrawal or death of the shareholders may not affect the existence of the company. Board of directors. There is board of directors who control the business of taking most of the major day-to-day decisions. Acquisition of capital. Capital is raised through the issue of shares. Capital can also be raised through borrowing from financial institutions and issuing of debentures. Number 7, publications of accounts. Publications of accounts, that is a corporate business organization must have its accounts publicized, usually annually. It must submit an audited balance sheet to the registrar of the company for inspection. So let us look at the formation of the limited liability company. The formation of the limited liability company involves 4 steps. The first step here is filling of documents with the registrars. The first step in the formation of limited liability company involves filling of documents with the registrars of the company. Such documents include the memorandum of the association, the articles of the association, the names of the company's directors, and the letter of undertaking. The memorandum of the association includes the relation of the company with the outside world, the name of the company, the business address, the objectives of the company, the nature of the shareholders' liabilities, and the amount and type of shareholders' capital, and so. Then articles of association. The articles of association give the rules and regulations guiding the operation of the company. The documents provide information on the following areas: the duty, rights, and the position of each member of the company, methods of the appointments of directors, the rights and powers of the directors, how dividends are to be shared, how general meetings are to be held, method of electing directors, voting rights of the shareholders during election, method of auditing the accounts of the company. Is the second step of formation of limited liability is the preparation of certificate of incorporation. As the second step, after the preparation and submission of the documents to the registrars of the company, involves preparation of certificate of incorporation. If the registrar is satisfied that the business has met the necessary requirement for company formation, the registrars will then send a certificate of incorporation. The certificate of incorporation shows that the business has been recognized as a legal entity. It shows that the business has been recognized as a legal entity. Then the next one is, that is the third one, is the C, the submission of company prospectus to the registrars of the company. The prospectus shows how the company has raised and wants to raise its capital. The last but not the least is, that is the fourth one, preparation of certificate of trading by the registrars of the company. The business can start functioning as soon as they receive trading certificate from the registrars of the company. Advantages. Advantages of limited liability companies. Legal entity. That is number one. The business has a separate legal entity, and as a result, it is distinct from the owner. It can therefore be sued. It can therefore sue and be sued in its own right. Legal or limited liability, that is number two. In the case of business failure, there is, in the case of business failure, the maximum amount a shareholder can lose is the amount of capital he has contributed to the business. His personal assets are protected by law. Number three, large capital. The business has large resources of capital because of the large number of shareholders in the company. The company also finds it easy to borrow money because of its many assets which can be used as collateral. Sure of continuity. Number four, there is continuity of the business on the death or illness of the shareholders. The misfortunes of the shareholders do not affect the existence of the company and its operations. Transfer of capital. The share of public liability company are easily transferred. They are transferable for cash. This form of business ownership has the advantages of allowing the shareholders to transfer their capital as will if they feel dissatisfied with the company. They can sell their shares. collects money to another person who is interested in owning a share in that company. Specialization is also possible. Division of labor is possible under this system of business ownership due to a large number of people involved in running the business. The organization is divided into various departments. This leads to greater efficiency. Risk reduction among owners. The business risks are shared among the large number of persons. The wider spread of risks results in reduced loss for each shareholder in the event of business failure. Disadvantages of limited liability company. Difficult to establish. That is number one. Due to the government interest in this type of business organization, the formation or formalities for the establishment are usually very complicated. A number of requirements must be fulfilled before the business is registered as a company. Required for large amounts of capital. Apart from the formalities required to establish the business, the company also requires a huge amount of capital to start the business. Delay in decision making. There is delay in taking decision because of relatively large size of the business. Before any major policy or change can be adopted by the manager, the meeting of shareholders or the board of directors has to be convened. All this may take quite a long time. Lack of privacy. It is required by the law for the company to make public all the financial activities and operations of the business. All vital documents and information concerning the business are also sent to the registrars of the company for inspection. At times, annual reports of company is published in the dailies. Number 5, ownership is separated from management. Since the shareholders who are the owners of the business are separated from the management of the business, there may be a negative attitude among the management or managers toward the interests of the shareholders. Yes, they can divide because we don't know how much, whatever they give us, that is what we collect. The managers may embezzle the company's funds since the business is not their own. Yes, very possible. Then the sixth one is lack of cordial relationship between the employers and the employees. So the lack of cordial relationship between the employers and employees, unlike single proprietorship and partnership. The size of this company makes cordial relationship with employees and the customers or stroke employees impossible. The shareholders may not know each other. The owners may range into thousands and are scattered throughout the country. Decrease in personal interest. The type of interest, zeal, and enthusiasm found in a business owned by and controlled by one man is lacking in the limited liability company. This is because the ownership is separated from the management. In conclusion, we have discussed the entrepreneurship as a factor of production. We defined entrepreneur and justified why entrepreneur is separated from labor as a factor of production. We have also described the organizational structure of the typical farm business. We have discussed single or sole proprietorship as a form of business ownership. We have also discussed partnership as a form of business ownership. We have discussed the meaning of liability company. We have also discussed the types of liability companies. The characteristics feature of the companies were also highlighted. In summary, the enterprise combines and organizes other factors of production to produce maximum outputs with minimum cost. Entrepreneur is also known as enterprise or organization. The reward for the entrepreneur is either profit or loss. Both entrepreneur and labor involves human effort, but entrepreneur is different from labor because the two perform different functions. We have also discussed single or sole proprietorship. We have discussed partnership, and we have also discussed limited liability companies. And we have also said the advantages as well as the advantages. Ah,
Okay, no problem.
thank you. Sorry for keeping you.